I grew up just outside of Montpelier.
Oh, really? South or north?
South. Out towards Key Ground, Dingle, out in that area.
Where's your name?
Now, where are you guys from?
No. All right, my wife's a
Oh, no, yeah.
I know,
Yeah, I know.
you know how stubborn. You got that in Bergen?
I'm not stubborn like them.
Yeah, I do a bunch of vegetables.
You know something about Big Idaho, little cold walls in the world, everywhere you go, somebody behaves, somebody wait there.
It doesn't matter where you go.
It's the
It's
center of the universe.
Everybody knows somebody. Yeah. You're in 1,000 people, you know somebody.
All right, folks, we're about to start. Hopefully, there we go.
It's
Yeah.
not a very big area, but pretty productive.
Pretty long.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's cold, I find the warm in the valley.
But you are in the warm end of the You're 2 to 3 weeks more.
Cold flipping Roosevelt. That mellow winter this year, haven't they? The last 7 have been mellow. When it hits us, it's gonna bite.
Yeah, I love it when they show the face and your lowest tends to be your high 20 degrees.
All right, folks, thanks for coming in. I'm going to introduce you here to Cameron Williams.
You have to use the microphone.
You do have to use a microphone in order for us to get that stream going.
Okay, now that I know everybody and we're all good friends, family, I met a cousin in the last session I talked, so I didn't even know he was here, so. I'm Cameron Williams, I'm from Grace, Idaho. I would like this to be interactive. If I say something that doesn't make sense or you want more information, let's stop and talk about it. I don't care if I get through all my slides. I got more slides than I got time. So any question, I'll give you my opinion. I probably don't know the right answer, but I'll give you my opinion. So we got the smart boys here. We met at lunch, 3 of them. So if I don't know,
Roosevelt, how smart could they be?
smarter than I am apparently. So
People won't go on the reservation. They won't follow you.
so yeah, stop if you got questions. I don't have the answers. 10 years ago, I started down this path, and partly to prove I could do it, partly to prove some people wrong, mostly to feed a cow. The other reason is so I didn't have to spend any more time driving a tractor than absolutely necessary. I'd much rather be on a good saddle horse than a brand new tractor. So that's kind of a little about me. So my dad and I have an operation together. I have a bachelor's degree in agronomy, associates in ag business. My wife and 4 kids. I have a day job besides the ranch. I am the 5th generation on the same place. That comes with some weight. That's a hard deal. To think that if I can't make it work, I'm the 5th generation and the one to fail. That comes with some problems. Then my dad, he worked at the grain elevator for 25 years. Kimball pointed that out earlier today. So he retired when he in his 50s, took over the ranch from his dad. So let's see. On him, he knows what's worked in the past. It's kind of hard to change something that's worked. So he sent me this cartoon at work one day. Run-down plays, broke down windmill, scattered fences. So I got 3 brothers and a sister, and I was the only one foolish enough to live the dream. So our operation, we formed an LLC a number of years ago, partly for a transition, to transition my folks out and to transition my wife and I in. So we're running about 320 mother cows, 50, 60 yearlings, a dozen horses, 16 bulls, and then we summer on state grazing lease, and then we're on the home place for 7 months of the year. So that's 618 acres, 300 of it's irrigated. So we're running, let's see, 400 animal units for 7 months on our ground. Typically, we don't have to buy any additional feed. This last year, we had to buy some hay. First crop hay was awful, so we ended up buying some hay. Started cover crops in 2013, no-till. First no-till was in 2016, and then I've been full no-till since 2018. So I got some wild ideas. When you live in cold weather country, your grazing season's pretty short. Your growing season, my growing season's like 80 to 100 if you talk 32 degrees. Yeah, I know. I'm the only guy in the world looking forward to global warming, so I might can grow something. So if you look at 28 and a half, that's a killing frost. If I look at that, it's another 30 days of growing. If I look at species that will take 20, I got a 200-day growing season. I'd rather have cow crap to my armpits than grease under my fingernails. So I don't love machinery. I think machinery is the death of a cow business. You buy new equipment, cows won't pay for new equipment. Unless you got better cows than I do. So I ran across this greeting card, not too long ago. Got my dad and I sitting here on the fence visiting about something, and the neighbor's sitting over waiting for us to fail at these crazy things I'm trying. Figure they can buy up the ground when I fail. Once my dad gets asked, "What's that kid of yours doing?" Or "What's that weed patch he's got growing?" But for some reason, everybody wants to come shoot the deer that show up at my place. So kind of some history. Prior to 2019, our typical rotation was 5 to 7 years of hay, then 2 to 3 years of feed barley. That's what we were doing for a long time. 2010, as I got more involved, I couldn't see, I hate the combine. Can't think, unless you got money and buy a nice combine, I can't see any reason to own a combine. The old broke down combine has got to be the worst thing to work on. So about 2010, we started raising some small grains for hay, cutting our feed barley, and running more cattle. So then 2013 is the first year I experimented with cover crops. I call it cow salad. I'll show you some pictures of what it looks like. When we go to the buffet, do we want to eat one thing? Does everybody just want to eat some lettuce? Or do you want a diversity on your salad? It's kind of how I look at it. 2017 started with some grazing corn, no-till cover crops after alfalfa. Then 2018, some full season cover crops that I fall grazed, no-till seeding. So it all goes back to the 5 principles of soil health. If you've been to any of these workshops, you've seen this before. The more of those you can incorporate, the faster you can change your soil. So just kind of graphically, the blue line is the minimum daily temperature in Grace, Idaho. That's how much growing season I have, and then the horizontal is the daily temperature. You look at 30 degrees, I don't have much window of growing opportunity. So I kind of graphed those based on what the killing temperature of it was, and how much of the growing season I was using historically. So that with the changes I made to cover crops, this is the opportunity I'm now seizing. I got fall cover crops down at 10 degrees temperature. You may not think things will grow at 10, but they'll stay green at 10. They don't produce much, but they'll stay alive. You kind of got to choose the species. So with that, I'm trying to fill every growing degree opportunity I can. So probably most of you, small grain hay, you're familiar with that. This is peas and barley, Arvika peas and barley. Lavina barley, it's a beardless barley. I really like Arvika peas. They'll compete for height and put a lot of tonnage on. They're a spring pea. Yeah, I'll hay it. One cutting hay it, and then plant a cover crop right behind it. So peas and barley I like well. With my small grain crop, I want to take that off as fast as I can because I want the heat units for the next crop. There's quite a bit of thought on how long you let that go to maturity. The longer you let it go, the quality of it goes down. So I'll take it off fairly quick. Soft dough on barley. Triticale, if I see a seed head, I'm knocking triticale down. Triticale quality will diminish really fast. So then this is Cossack black oats and Berseem clover. This was a beautiful crop. This was this last year. Beautiful crop. We didn't have any rain all summer. None till a couple of days. About the day this was dry, we got our one shower. The cows are eating it really good, even though it's a little brown. But it was a beautiful crop. Berseem clover is the only clover that I've grown that I've been happy with how much for height. That's the clover I've been happy with. So,
Which clover was that?
Berseem or Bermseem.
You figure you get more tonnage out of that than the others? How does it compare to alfalfa?
Probably if you plant it straight, it would compete with alfalfa, but I'm just adding it to my grain. There's a guy in Hamer, Idaho, that grew it straight in rotation and competed with alfalfa yield-wise, and quality was exceptional, but I haven't tried that. Arvika, Arvika. It's a forage pea. I think 4010s are the same thing, but those two varieties I've had really good yield advantage with, like for sure over a winter pea, over an Austrian. So historically, this was my means. After I cut my grain hay, I would go in with Colt Packer, drop the teeth, and my 610 International drill. It's got no down pressure force, so it's just setting the discs at ground level, scratching it in basically. Quite a bit of dust, not much seed depth. Like planting peas this way didn't work very well because they'd float up, but it's what I had. It's all I had to do it with, so then we'd turn the water on. And that's kind of where cow salad come from. A whole lot of diversity. Several different species in the mix. This in 2013 was the first year I tried this. I really had a hard time calibrating my drill. I probably planted 2/3 of the field and ran out of seed. Which, when you buy a mix and you're 1,000 miles from a seed supplier, you can't go buy the same mix. So drill calibration is a real challenge. I haven't had any problem with seed separation in the drill, in either drill I've used. It stays good, but calibration's been hard for me. So this is a chart that I use. This is from Kentucky. So if you take your drill spacing, like 7.5 inch centers, and if I wanted 50 pounds to the acre, you go down to the chart, and that tells you how many grams you need to run through each opener. So irregardless of what you seed with, you can use that chart. You don't need to know bushel weights of it or anything. So that, for me, that's been a really slick way to calibrate. Not that I don't mess up occasionally still. So run 150 feet, get your seed catch, and weigh them out, and then you know how to adjust. So I think the website, YouTube video on it too. If some government agency was really smart, they'd give you magnets with this on it. So when you have a suggestion to Tony, tell him that's what you need. So then 2015 kind of followed along. This was a crop, a cover crop, same deal. When we clipped and weighed this, we were between 5,700 pounds and 13,000 pounds to the acre. You can see my warm season grasses like the corn and Sudan. I'm really struggling to grow those. Planted the first week of July. I'm killing them the end of July most years. That's been a really hard struggle. Like both Jimmy and Jill talked about growing warm season grasses, and I'm really struggling with that. And I'm seeing the soil change. I'm seeing the soil darken, seeing the texture change. I wouldn't have believed that 10 years ago, that you could see a change. So I've got a question for all you good farmers. Oh, the smart boys. This is good. Are you using Roundup? Anybody here using Roundup? What rate you using? Whatever the agronomist tells you to. How much water are you running with it? They're spraying it? Out in the back.
I do it on a small level, but it's just kind of basically just what it says on the jug. We use different type of Roundup, and so we just kind of depends on the year. We have a big poison problem with weeds because we saw like we saw and so we just spray like that heavier than we probably should.
What's recommended? The one thing to look at on Roundup, and this is something I learned along the way. One thing about where I live, nobody's doing what I'm talking about. They all think I'm crazy. If you cut your water rate, Roundup doesn't like a lot of water. Like 5 to 7 gallons of water is more than enough for Roundup. And in doing that, you can cut your Roundup rates. Any other options to Roundup for burn down?
We mess with the master a little bit, or some stuff that our co-op has brought us. And with the weed master and stuff, we've noticed it kind of affects everything different. It kills it quicker and it gets it down more. And every now and again, we'll actually add like an additive to it that simulates like a fertilizer, so it tricks the plant into accepting it more and it kills it quicker.
Yeah, Roundup label calls for that, for ammonium sulfate with it to do that. So the other group I had said gramoxin, which I've read a little about gramoxin, but I don't know much about it.
It'll give you fast burn down.
But it won't wipe it out, right? So the other thing in this path, I've got to planting first, so I'll plant green into what's there and then spray my burn down 2 days later. That way my dead window's a little farther into the crop. Just so you don't have emergence, you're okay doing that. But it keeps it dead longer, gives your crop a chance to come up through it, and gives you a little more control. So this is the first year we did that. We cut first crop alfalfa quackgrass mostly. So when our alfalfa stands run out, we get quackgrass. We feed enough cows that we end up with quackgrass. So we took first crop hay, good yield. Quackgrass will yield awesome first cutting. Greened it back up, no-tilled it. I got one of my friends to come with his no-till drill. We planted right into it on a Friday. The co-op was supposed to come spray it Saturday. They didn't show up. By Monday, I had emergence on some of my brassicas. They showed up to spray it, and I had a decision: either leave the grass and alfalfa and sacrifice the cover crop, or kill what emerged. So that's midsummer, so I had heat units, had wet ground. Probably my preference is to spray after planting unless you can't get it done timely. if a rainstorm catches me, I'm gonna be in trouble, so. So this is 27, this is just an example of a mix that I would use. This is 2017. I spent $38 an acre, that's with freight, and planted at 50 pounds to the acre. So then this is what it looked like end of August. A lot of diversity, sunflowers. We had a good fall that year. Sunflowers blossomed. It was really pretty.
Is that under irrigation?
Yeah, it's all under irrigation. Typically, with the hand lines, I'll water an 8-hour set as soon as I drill it, as quick as I can get across it. I'd go shorter if I didn't have to be to work or sleep, but I'll do 2 8-hour sets or 3 8-hour sets, and then go probably once or twice on a 12-hour, and then I'll be out of water. It doesn't need water other than to get growing. It's not using all that water, but under pivot, I would go a lot shorter than what I'm doing for water. And by end of August, usually we'll get some natural precipitation, so we'll cut back once we start getting a little water that way. Lots of small grains. So we're going to graze this in the fall. So everything I plant's about grazing. So that same year, this is some nodules. So the picture on your right is peas. You see the nodulation on that. This bottom picture is faba beans. So this nodule here is like walnut size. And you break it open and it's pretty incredible to see. So faba beans, like that's one plant that really interests me. They'll fix 20 to 30% more nitrogen than peas. In Idaho, we can't legally grow them because of bean seed law. But I've had tremendous success with them. And they'll take some cold weather too. They're an indeterminate species, so they'll just keep growing. I'll show you some other pictures of those later. So here's that same mix in the fall. We'll bring cows home off the range and start grazing it. One thing I've really struggled to do is strip graze. I got too many things going on. I can justify what I'm doing, but for sure I could increase my use efficiency if I would strip graze them.
When do you usually turn it in?
About Halloween, we'll come home with cattle. My justification is I'm okay stomping a bunch of that in the ground. I don't have to process it all through the cow. And I've really struggled with that as a cattleman. I don't want to run every bit of it through my cow. Every bit that goes through the cow saves me $1 feed. But I'm okay letting it go into the ground. That and the deer usually wipe my fence out, and then I'm frustrated with them. So, but it's really tremendous feed to pull pairs off and put it on. Probably this coming year we're talking about weaning our calves and hauling them home early to go on this feed, and then selling weaned calves. So here's my next question for you. How many of you are no-tillers? Partially? Did you adjust your seed? Do you adjust your seed rate when you're going to go no-till? What do you do with it? 20%? Did you?
Yeah, we do a little bit. We'll test some freeway mix with forage. So we'll cut that off and then burn down that and then just go and go to 10% and rest behind it.
So are you pushing your seed rate up a little with that?
For the different size of seeds, yes, but not, we just do it different. We don't increase it from what is recommended or decrease it, we just plan it.
Okay. Because I've kind of found 20% is where I kind of think you need to be no-till. And I don't know what's happened to the seed, but it seems that you need a little heavier seed rate. And especially for forage grains, I don't know if you can go too high. I planted some Willow Creek winter wheat at 140 pounds irrigated. which I thought was crazy, but it was a beautiful crop and no weeds in it. So I think you can do a lot of weed control with seeding rate.
What time of the year was that, Cameron, on that rotary?
It was probably the end of August I planted it. The other thing with no-till, emergence is slower. At least I think it's slower. Seems like I wait around where the neighbors is coming out of the ground, but. So then 2017, monumental occasion. I was bound and determined to try some grazing corn. So we had a half pivot of alfalfa that had been in grass alfalfa hay for a long time. We grazed it the month of May, greened it back up, sprayed it with Roundup, and then I tucked one of the guys on the south end of the valley to come up with his corn planter and to plant into this. That's what it looked like after he planted it. This is the amount of ground disturbance we got. Is it going to work? Smart boys? No-till corn into alfalfa, will that work? You wouldn't try it? In Roosevelt, would that work?
I'll bet it worked.
You bet it worked. Why else would I get to come talk about it? So corn's not typically a thing that's grown in grace. There's a little bit of silage corn. So this is what the corn looked like. Looks like pretty good corn to me, and I don't know a lot about corn. Put on 100 units of N, 35 units of phos. My fertilizer bill was $82 for that corn. I just listened to Jill Clapperton. Listening to her, I should have left the alfalfa and just burned it back and planted it in. That they're species of companionship, which is pretty interesting. So this is a grazing corn, so it's not, you can see the cob, it's not going to make a true kernel. It's never meant to finish, so it's.
So did you completely kill the alfalfa, or?
Yeah, I did. I think if you had a good stand alfalfa, I would burn it back and let it come with the corn. The guys that sell, this is from Baldridge Hybrids, and their growing manual says to use gramoxin and burn your alfalfa back and let them come together. So this is up on the pivot. There's the truss rods. The picture on the right-hand side is up on the tower looking at the stop arm. I had planned on flying cover crop. It canopied on 22-inch rows. I threw down in it. No lights. It's a standard. I don't know what the height on it would be. 10 foot. I'm scared when I'm up on it, so. No, it's not a low profile. It's a standard one. Yeah, I'm scared of it. So one thing I do watch is the manure. You can tell if your cow's getting adequate protein based on how the manure patties stack up. Probably most of you know that. So that's one thing I will watch. So with the corn, this was my grazing plan for it. We're going to split it up into 3-day use. 3 acres figured out to be about the right number for the cows we were going to graze it with. So every 3rd day I was going to move the fence. Was that a chuckle?
You have problems in alfalfa, I think you're going to have problems.
So the way we had at the time we had a Japanese mini truck. So we would drive one way through it and then drive back, string and fence. You want to have a really good ride? You get in that mini truck and be 6'2" and climb in under the steering wheel. And you got to go pretty fast. Sounds like you're going through the safari of the jungle. The corn stalks beating off of it and going under it. You book it along and then you hit the pivot track. it's a good time. So some of the rows aren't perfectly straight. That's how we did it the first year, probably the first year. The second year, the truck, four-wheel drive went out on the truck, so I couldn't use that. So we took the loader tractor with the GPS and just put the bucket down and back drug it. And that way I had really straight rows too, so. Jimmy Emmons, in one of his talks, he shows dragging a tire behind his ATV to flatten that row down. So that was a new idea to me. So we electric fenced it, started grazing, like the 15th of December. We struggled to keep our electric fence hot. That was a real huge challenge the first year. So a couple things on that. Aircraft cable electric fence wire, like solid steel braided wire, is a lot hotter than poly wire. I can't think of the fencer company. More juice in the fencer helped it. I still have one cow that she'll climb over anything. Should get rid of her. So we grazed that 3 days. We did feed some alfalfa with it, just for protein.
And how long did they stay in?
3 days in every one of those strips was a targeted goal.
When were you done grazing?
That year is about the 10th of January, I think. That year, the cows started calving the 1st of February. We've since backed our cows off a month. So that was a little trouble that year. We probably didn't have enough protein for that late in breeding. So that is something to watch. I would really love to back my cows off even more. But the grazing association we run on, we can't control everybody else's bulls. So production on the corn, the first year we were at 18% moisture, which I guess is like silage type corn, or 82%, 18% dry matter, 82% moisture, other way. We were like 27 ton, which I was thrilled with. I thought that was pretty awesome. So oven dry, we would be 4.9 ton. Actual utilization, we figured we put 3.4 ton through a cow, so 60% utilization. We didn't get it all through the cow. So we fed the soil biology quite a bit. Cost me $400 an acre to produce it. So here's a picture. In that corn right there, there's 240 cows and 65 calves. You'd turn them in, they'd go eat every cob off of every plant. They would just down the line, every cob. Then they'd come in, strip all the leaves, and then day 3 they'll eat the stalks and tops and stomp it down. So our nutritionist, he forage tested it, and we were like 12% crude protein on a dry matter basis. So in 2018, I finally gave in and bought a no-till drill. I can see that this is gonna work. Took 5 years, I'm a slow learner. I could see I could make it work. So in that picture on the right-hand side, what is that? What does that look like? It's a tire track. What's in the tire track? Worm castings. That's the worm outhouse there. So that's right by the gate that we go into the field we're calving in. That would have had a small grain cover crop, and then in the spring, that's what the worm castings look like. So I have worms growing. That's a pretty good indication something's going right. So 2018, decided I was going to plant my corn with my box drill. So plugged every other opener, went out, planted it, sprayed over the top of it. 15-inch rows, 32,000 seed population. So if you want your corn to look really good for a photo, you find a short, fat guy. So that's Marlon Winger. Some of you, that's Marlon. I tease him about that, so similar yield, 6.67 ton dry matter. See, I didn't get the alpha. Same type of deal, 240 head days an acre. Let's see, unbeliever smart guy, because I can't remember your name. What does it cost you to feed a cow a day, right now? In the winter, like feeding her hay. $4. So your smart brother over there, what's $4 a day times 240? So I made $1,000 grazing that corn a day per acre. What are you guys growing that's paying you that? Other than alfalfa this year, but well, it's not perfect, but so. I didn't have ground under pivot to put it in, was the biggest problem this year. So if this video works, this is the drill following the year of corn, planting into it. So this is me trying to drive in video and cutting corn stalks. I didn't have any trouble with it at all. One suggestion would be plant a little deeper and slow down, but so that same year, 2018, behind the corn, I went full season cover crop. I spent $25 an acre on seed. My seed population was 1.2 million seeds. Most of my cover crops, I'm trying to be 1.2 to 1.5 million seeds. So Jed, what's your suggestion, the guys you work with, on cover crop seed count? That's irrigated. Dryland, that would be a whole different story, but typically I won't be over 2 pounds of a brassica. Oh, I think over 2 pounds is too heavy on a brassica. The cows get washy and they blow it all out the back of them. And I also play with species, so don't have a lot of credit in what species I planted. I spent, let's see, I put on 60, 35, 0, and 10 sulfur. I spent $57 an acre on fertilizer on this crop. Yielded 6.13 tons and 231 head days an acre.
Do you usually put sulfur on?
Yeah. My field man puts sulfur on everything. I don't know why, but he always wants some sulfur with it. Yeah. What I learned an hour ago, I need a lot more of it, so that I probably should put a lot more on. So we were going to just straight graze that crop. Sunflower heads, when they dry down, they all curve over. And dragon string through curved over sunflowers is not much fun. You try and flip it over, and then you got to walk between every plant back up the row. So that worked for about a day, and then I'm like, we're going to mow this. We're going to swat this because I can't spend this much time moving string. So moved to daily moves. Since this, I've learned, listening to Jim Garish, his suggestion is to double rake those at like 50 to 60% moisture, and that'll kind of rope them together. Like when you make rake hay that's way too wet, how it makes a big old rope. His suggestion is to rope your cover crop, and then it won't blow. And then it would stand up better in some snow. But do it at 50 to 60% moisture. Also use a ground-driven rake rather than a hydraulic. I would wonder about molding it, doing that, but what he says is it won't mold. So this is what it looks like when you turn 300 cows onto windrows. Cows look okay. Look fleshy. Good hair coat. How about the Hereford cow? She look okay? You got the skit? There's something about the competitiveness of it getting to it. But I think it increases consumption. There's old beauty. So I talked a little about faba beans. This year, or the 2018, I planted just a corner of the pivot into faba beans, just to see what they would do. You should be experimenting with at least a few acres. It makes farming a lot more fun. So these faba beans, they're indeterminate, so they'll just keep setting pods as long as conditions are right, and they just kept growing up. They were a really fascinating plant. So I stockpile graze these with the corn. They turn black as coal. What I wanted to know is if I could use them as a protein source, but I didn't know how to measure that. If that would meet my protein need for the cows. But I didn't know how to measure if I didn't have the Noble Research Foundation there to help me. So my team's pretty limited. So you can see the nodules on that faba beans. The soil's black. We have volcanic soils, but typically they're not that black. 15? Okay. So the challenges I'm having is how to get an alfalfa field smooth in a village. I don't have a good answer. We ended up high-speed discing the field this fall because of that. I just don't know how to do it. Suggestion, I'd sure take it. And then, go for it.
So what we use is to pick what's in our tires, cut them in half, then chain them together, and make a drag out of them.
And you can knock,
Open those out pretty well, and it's pretty indestructible. You put your wild teenager on there.
I got some wild teenagers, so that's a good suggestion.
Just cut them in half, turn the cut side down so when the rubber flexes, so it doesn't really do damage to you.
Yeah, I cut industrial tires for water troughs, so I have lots of sidewalls that would work really well for that. So, then pivot tracks are my other challenge. If you've heard Dwayne Beck, he says you don't have pivot tracks anymore. With my wiper pivots, I'm still getting tracks. I'm not sure how to take care of that. The alfalfa field, they're probably 8-10 inches deep. Because we're watering back and forth. So a couple of pictures, no-till and alfalfa. So one thing I've done is planted alfalfa after my small grain hay. So that way I don't have a risk of frost. If you plant alfalfa in 1st of July, you have no frost risk. You'll get it up good, and you don't have the first year lag on your hay crop. That first full season, it's like a regular hay crop. Alfalfa.
Did you disc this, or did you do anything this before you drilled it?
I just drilled it.
It's pretty smooth.
Yeah, that one's pretty smooth. That piece of ground is like an island of green among all the grain farmers, and so I have a mess in that ground. So then, my feeling is if you're going to go to no-till, there's two places to do it. With a fall-seeded crop, following alfalfa or no-till corn. I think alfalfa is the prime opportunity to go to no-till because your soils have kind of healed themselves. You have been hauling all the carbon off, but the structure's better. And looks to me like corn's a pretty easy option to go that way. So this is all the cover crop species I've tried. So if you have questions about any of them, I'd be glad to tell you what I know. I talked about bursting clover. That's the best clover for grazing, for competition that I've had luck with. I like woolly pod vetch. Red clover is one species that I think we should be paying a whole lot more attention to. in hay production. I like red clover. If you got grass pasture you want to add a legume to, red clover is the thing to plant. It's really competitive. The warm seasons I haven't had good luck with. Phacelia will break some phosphorus loose. It's a nice flowering plant. Italian ryegrass is good forage if you can get it to produce. If you're in wheat country, you may not want Italian ryegrass in your system. I like forage collards. I try and avoid anything with a bulb. Haven't killed anything choking and haven't seen anybody that has, but I don't want to run the risk. It's not worth the risk to me. Like top turnips. I just don't, I try not to do them. Not that I've had a problem, but I'm not willing to risk it. So Gabe Brown, back on that. Gabe Brown said, I didn't pick your wife and I'm not going to pick your cover crops. You kind of got to learn what works for your area. So this is his enterprise model of all the ways he can make money on his operation. This hangs on my desk. It's not just about one crop. For me, it's just about beef cows. For him, it's about all those opportunities. He doesn't have to change his operation base, but he's got all those opportunities. So one day I sat my family down and said, what all do we have opportunities on our place? You probably can't read them, which is just fine. So we have my grandparents' house, the ranch house. They passed away, and we were debating what to do with it. We had renters for a while and didn't like renters. So we decided to make it an Airbnb. Probably the most profitable enterprise that we have. This last year for sure. I've dumbfounded the amount of people that come. So I cut industrial tires, make water troughs. That's another entity. So I decided I'm going to sell some fence posts. I was already ordering semi-loads of fence posts. Why not sell a few? So those are all the ways that we thought we could make money. My one son wanted pigs. We tried that. My daughter wanted to raise horses. We haven't tried too much of that. So just look at the opportunities you have. So here, this is a missed opportunity. This is a piece of ground that a year ago we planted triticale on in the fall. Killed the alfalfa, planted fall trit. We grazed it in the fall. Then we watered it this spring, cut it for hay. When we were out moving pipe in that, you'd take a step, the worms scattered from where your feet were. I'd never seen anything like it. It blew me away. So we knew we were going to run out of irrigation water this year. Got the trit. I bought the seed early. I actually ordered my seed way early last year. Know I'm going to run out of irrigation water, so what did I do? Did I plant it? Did I say I'll use water somewhere else? Right. What happened? I grew regrowth triticale musk thistles on it. I swapped those off once, grew them again. Didn't put any water on. I had the seed, I didn't take the opportunity. I didn't even believe what I'm preaching to you. So I missed the opportunity. I'm going to skip that. So these are pivot tracks. Went out to turn, we got some rain. I think I was going out to turn the pivot off and walked across these pivot tracks. So obviously it was like Lollapalooza for the worms that day. To me, that's success. The other thing, we have a railroad track used to go through our property. Finally decided we were going to level it, take it out, so we can put pivot on. So this is ground that hadn't been tilled, been piled up dirt. How would you reclaim that? course, you'd till it, right? That's the solution to all problems, is to till it. And if that doesn't work, till it some more. So level with track out, worked it, harrowed it, worked it, harrowed it, blew a tire, worked it some more, then drilled it. So what did I plant in it? Cover crop. This is a mix from Green Cover. They'll sell you the floor sweepings and mistakes and whatever. So you have no idea what you're ordering, but they'll sell it to you pretty cheap. I'm going to prime the biology with that cover crop. So for me, that's how you prime the soil. That's how you get it functioning. I don't do a good job managing my livestock. That's something I can improve on. But I am okay sacrificing some material. As livestock users, this is something we don't pay enough attention to, I don't think. If I have 3 ton of hay, and if I mow, bale, swath, rake, haul that in, haul it out, and feed it on the ground, I have 40% loss. Probably all you are better haymakers than I am, so, and you don't have round balers, so it's probably not quite this bad. So of that 3 ton, I actually feed 2 ton to the cow. If I use Christopher Columbus grazing and turn my cows out in the spring and gather them up rediscover them in the fall, of that 3 ton of forage, I'm only actually using a ton of it. If I'm willing to go to daily or 2 times a day move, I have way increased the amount of forage I'm putting through the cow. 5 minutes? Okay, we talked about that. So my simple brain, this rolls through my head, and I'm sure it's not quite exactly accurate, but my corn, I spent $82 on fertilizer the first year. Of that $82, 40% of it went to waste, organic matter waste. 80% of it went into the cow. So of my $82, $49 went in the cow. Of that, only 15% of the nutrients is removed in the beef. So of my $82, I only removed $7 of it. If I were to chop that crop and harvest it at all, $82 of it's removed. $82 of the nutrients is removed. Whereas if it's processed through a cow, only 15% of the nutrients are removed. The question Jimmy got earlier, I think, hits on this, that somehow you got to figure out how to put back in the system. If you're chopped corn, all of it's getting extracted. So we're going to skip. There's my equipment pool. I have a $300 sprayer. Bought it from Magic Valley Auctions, welded the booms on that tank, and a drill. I don't have nice equipment, but I'm making it work. So, any questions?
So what made you change? What was the goal?
Yeah, I'm the 5th generation. I had been to enough workshops to not believe this, but I wanted to see if I could make it work. I work for the NRCS, which I can't tell you that because I'm not supposed to be here. But before I could tell somebody this story of all these 5 principles of soil health, I had to believe. I had to think it actually worked, because this is not what I was taught to farm like. So I had to believe myself. So I am an experiment. My grandpa had passed away by the time we started. My dad, he's been really good as long as the haystacks are full going into winter. If we get enough hay for winter, then I can experiment. He thinks I'm crazy, I think. He's seen the benefit, the amount of time savings in tractor time alone and fuel. And we're getting the same yields, we're cutting the same crops, but the amount of time and fuel savings is tremendous. So he can see that.
What about changing profitability of your operation over time? Changing that?
That's really hard for me to answer because I don't take a wage off of it. My parents, my mom's a retired school teacher, they don't take much money off of it, so all the money typically is getting reinvested either into more cattle or land. So I'm not getting rich the way the last 5 years have been, by no means. So I don't know. I can tell you what it cost me an acre and how much I should be pocketing, but I'm not taking the money. This last year was awful, I'll tell you that. We bought 200 ton of hay at $2.10. So any money I would have made last year, I spent buying hay. Because my first crop hay yield was awful. Yeah. To answer your question, I guess we put 2 pivots on a year ago and don't owe anything on them. So most of the money's getting reinvested back into equipment because I have a job and I don't take any money. We're making more than we would have otherwise, but I'm not taking it as cash. Yeah.
What's your earthworm counts?
I don't know. My infiltration, like the ring in the ground deal, if any of you had that done, I can't infiltrate water doing it that way, but I can put 2 inches on with a pivot and never see a drop of it. We feed on most all the ground pretty heavy, so we do have some compaction from where they're at muddy season. But I haven't had a problem with growing a crop in that either. I don't think so. I haven't run into a problem with it yet. I don't think that it will.
Just sell the ripper.
We got so many lava rocks, we don't rip anything. Oh no. We'd break 5 shanks in 100 feet, so lots of shallow ground, lots of rock. No.
How long has your family been on this property then?
1904 is when they moved to this place. They actually settled about 15 miles north of here and moved closer to Grace in 1904. You're welcome.